When a congressional hearing turns into a verbal battlefield, you know something powerful is being protected. This wasn't politics as usual. This was a moment when power flinched, live on camera, and every viewer could feel it. What unfolded inside that room wasn't just a debate, it was a test of how far officials will go to avoid saying the one thing they don't want the public to hear. The tension started quietly, but it built fast, like static before a lightning strike. You could sense it, the kind of silence that only exists when something uncomfortable is about to explode. And once the first question landed, there was no going back. A congressman from California began by doing what few others had dared,
They do not apply to Southern District of New York, the location of the 2019 sex trafficking indictment, which produced many things, including a series of FD 302 documents. According to victims who cooperated with the FBI in that investigation, these documents in FBI possession, your possession, detail at least 20 men, including Mr. Jess Staley, CEO of Barclays Bank, who Jeffrey Epstein trafficked victims to, victims including minors, such as Virginia Roberts Giuffre, may she rest in peace. That list also includes at least 19 other individuals, one Hollywood producer worth a few $100 million, one royal prince, one high-profile individual in the music industry, one very prominent banker, one high-profile government official, one high-profile former politician, one owner of a car company in Italy, one rock star, one magician, at least 6 billionaires, including a billionaire from Canada. We know these people exist in the FBI files, the files that you control. I don't know exactly who they are, but the FBI does. Have you launched any investigations into any of these people, and have you seen these 302 documents?
Sir, I have asked my FBI agents to review the entirety of the Epstein files and bring forth any credible information, and we're working with Congress not only to divulge that information and produce it to you, but any investigations that arise from any credible investigation will be brought. There have been no new materials brought to me launching a new indictment.
So is the loophole here, or is it your assertion that these victims aren't credible, that the 302s maybe didn't produce credible statements that rise to a probable cause?
It's not my assertion, sir. It's the assertion of two different United States attorneys' offices from 3 separate administrations who investigated those same materials in lifetime.
Are the 302 documents in the FBI's possession?
They reviewed all that, yes, sir.
And so have you reviewed those 302 documents where the victims name the people who victimized them?
If I personally know, but the FBI has.
So how can you sit here and in front of the Senate and say there are no names?
I said
I named one today.
I said we are not in the practice at the Department of Justice FBI of releasing victims' names. That is not what we do. We are also not in the habit of releasing incredible information. That's not what we do. But multiple authorities have looked at the entirety of what we have.
Okay, I got to move on here. Were you present when the AG had the White House event when she released the binders to the social media influencers?
I was, yes.
So if you're willing to meet with social media influencers who stood to benefit from the sensational and sad stories of these victims, will you meet with the victims as well?
The FBI will meet with anyone who has new information.
Will you personally meet with them?
The FBI and the professionals who are handling the cases will.
Were you instructed that it was important to release the documents to the Oversight Committee on the day of my introduction of the discharge petition to release these files?
I don't know what day that was, so no.
Well, they were released that day, and there were victims' names who weren't redacted because they were in such a rush, and the victims are not happy about that. Have you investigated any of the CIA connections? Have you seen the CIA file on Jeffrey Epstein? And if you wanted to see it, would they show it to you?
Well, I can speak for the FBI, and that's presuming there's a CIA case file. And I've reviewed everything that the interagency, not I, the FBI, that was provided to us.
Would you be willing to look at the CIA file on Jeffrey Epstein?
If there is such a file, and if it has not already been turned over to the FBI will look at any new investigative leads.
Have you made any progress on the pipe bomb investigation January 6th? And have you made any progress on the motive of the Las Vegas shooter?
As to the first, it's an ongoing investigation, and we have made progress. As to the second, sir, I'll have to get back to you.
All right, thank you. I yield back.
Mr. Chairman, I have a unanimous
Gentleman
consent
yields
request.
back. Unanimous consent request from the gentleman from New York.
I ask unanimous consent to introduce an unsigned memorandum from July 7, 2025 that says we did not uncover evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties with the insignia of the Department of Justice and the FBI.
Without objection.
The evidence of survivors directly into the record. Emails from Epstein's victims, letters where they begged federal agencies for their own case files and were denied. Imagine that victims pleading to see their own truth, only to be shut out by the very system that swore to protect them. Then came the second document, a heavily redacted search warrant, whole pages blacked out, every meaningful detail wiped away. It was the perfect metaphor for everything the hearing would reveal, a story covered in ink, secrecy piled over silence. When Patel, the FBI director, took his seat, the energy in the room changed. The congressman's tone sharpened, his words deliberate. "Director, the first time you saw the name in those files, did you close them or keep reading?" The room froze. Cameras clicked. For a moment you could hear the tension in every breath. Patel hesitated, choosing his words like stepping through glass. "I haven't reviewed all of the files personally." That was the spark. In an instant the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. How could the head of the most powerful investigative agency admit he hadn't reviewed the largest trafficking case in modern history? The congressman's expression said everything: disbelief, frustration, and then resolve. "This is the biggest case your bureau has ever handled. The buck stops with you." Patel shifted in his seat, launching into a practiced list: crime reduction, drug interdiction, public safety. It sounded rehearsed, mechanical, the kind of answer designed to dodge, not to clarify. But the congressman didn't let go. "So you don't know how many times that name appears in the files?" Patel's eyes narrowed. "The number is misleading," he said, words heavy with irritation. "We've released all credible names." It was a non-answer dressed as a statement. The congressman pressed harder, firing questions faster. "Could it be 1,000? 500? 100? Each time Patel shook his head. No numbers, no details, no accountability, just deflection. The exchange turned sharp. The congressman demanded clarity. Patel accused him of political grandstanding. "You're wasting time chasing conspiracy headlines instead of serving your constituents," Patel snapped. It was the kind of insult meant to shut down a conversation, but it did the opposite. The congressman leaned in. "My constituents deserve answers, and so do the victims who still haven't seen justice." At that moment it wasn't just two men arguing. It was the sound of truth colliding with control. Patel's voice grew colder, more defensive. "We've released every lawfully permitted file. Your fixation on this matter is disgusting." The room stirred. It wasn't just tension anymore, it was hostility. The witness was supposed to be calm, professional. Instead he sounded cornered. And when people in power feel cornered, their words reveal more than they intend. Then came the most telling moment. The congressman asked, "Did you ever tell the Attorney General that the name was in those files?" The question echoed through the room. Patel dodged again, talking about policy reviews, about discussions, about context. The congressman repeated the question, simple, direct, impossible to misinterpret. Yes or no? Still no answer. Patel looked away, shuffled his notes, anything to buy a few seconds of silence. "You can use the alphabet if that helps," the congressman mocked. "A, B, C, pick one." Laughter rippled faintly through the room, but no one missed the point. Patel wouldn't answer because the truth wasn't convenient. By now it was clear this wasn't about one case file or one name. This was about something larger: how far agencies will go to protect the powerful while claiming transparency. When the congressman reminded him of his oath, Patel fired back with the oldest defense in Washington: national security. "My duty is to protect the safety of this country." It sounded noble until you realized what it meant, that secrecy was being disguised as patriotism, that the truth was being buried in the name of protection. Every time this happens, public trust cracks a little more. The phrase national security has become a magic shield, one that blocks questions instead of danger. Because once that phrase is spoken, the public is told to stop asking. But not this time. The congressman wasn't done. He shifted gears. Let's talk about your book, Government Gangsters. Patel straightened instantly. The air changed again. You named 20 people in that book, including me, the congressman said. You labeled them as corrupt, so will you recuse yourself from any investigations involving them? The silence was heavy. Everyone knew the implications. A sitting official overseeing investigations into people he publicly called enemies. That's not oversight. That's vendetta. Yet Patel didn't deny it. Anyone removed from the Bureau failed their constitutional obligations, he said flatly. The congressman's voice rose calm but cutting. That's not an answer. That's a justification. When Patel shot back, your entire career has been a disgrace, gasps rippled through the chamber. The gloves were off. What should have been a fact-finding hearing had turned into open warfare. The chairman tried to regain control, but the damage was done. The mask of professionalism had slipped. What viewers saw wasn't just anger, it was contempt. And in Washington, contempt often hides fear. When people lash out under questioning, it's usually because the truth is closer than they want to admit. But behind the shouting, something deeper was happening. The confrontation exposed how fragile transparency has become in America. Every redacted page, every unanswered question, every "we'll get back to you," erodes the foundation of accountability. The Epstein scandal is no longer about one man's crimes, it's about the machinery that enabled him, protected him, and still refuses to reveal everything. Think about it. The victim's emails were ignored, files were sealed, warrant pages blacked out. And when pressed for answers, officials hide behind procedure, behind ongoing investigations, behind anything but the truth. The same system that's supposed to deliver justice has built walls around it. The question isn't just who's guilty, it's who's protected. Patel's deflection, turning a simple yes or no into a lecture, shows exactly how that protection works. It's a playbook perfected over decades. When cornered, change the subject, attack the questioner, invoke security. And if that fails, run out the clock. It's not incompetence, it's strategy, a slow suffocation of accountability, one non-answer at a time. But this time people noticed. Clips from the hearing flooded social media within hours. Viewers replayed Patel's dodges, his smirks, the sarcastic tone. Comment sections exploded with one question: what are they hiding? Because even if you didn't understand every legal detail, you could feel the imbalance. One man asking for truth, another doing everything possible to bury it. The emotional core of this hearing wasn't outrage, it was exhaustion. The public is tired of stone walls and polished statements, tired of agencies that promise transparency but deliver redactions. Tired of the same faces telling the same half-stories, while victims wait for closure that never comes. When Patel refused to say whether he'd even read all the files, it said more than any admission could. It confirmed that the system's priorities lie not with justice, but with damage control. And yet, moments like this hearing matter. They pierce the illusion that everything is fine, that oversight works. They show the cracks in the facade, because in that room, for a few minutes the mask slipped. And when it did, millions watching realized something most already suspected: that the truth isn't being hidden because it's complicated, it's being hidden because it's inconvenient. That's why the congressman's persistence mattered. He wasn't chasing headlines. He was exposing a pattern that goes beyond one investigation. When officials can label critics as gangsters, when agencies can hide evidence behind black ink, when leaders claim patriotism as an excuse for silence, that's not justice, that's theater. And the public deserves better than theater. This clash will be remembered not for who won the argument, but for what it revealed, how far the powerful will stretch the truth to keep the rest of us in the dark. Every refusal, every redacted document, every "I can't comment" is another brick in a wall between citizens and the system built to serve them. The moment we stop demanding answers, that wall becomes permanent. So the next time you see a hearing like this, don't just listen to what's said, listen to what isn't. Notice the long pauses, the rehearsed lines, the phrases that sound patriotic but mean nothing. That's where the real story hides, between the words, in the silence. Because truth rarely shouts, it waits. And it only surfaces when someone is bold enough to ask again and again, even when the answers don't come. This wasn't just a clash between a congressman and Patel, it was a mirror held up to a government that fears its own reflection. It reminded everyone watching that secrecy isn't safety, and power without accountability is just control wearing a badge. The truth may be buried for now, but history has a way of unearthing what people try hardest to hide. And that's why stories like this matter, not because they're dramatic, but because they reveal how fragile honesty has become in the halls of power. The hearing ended, the cameras switched off, but the question still echoes: who is being protected, and why? The answer won't come from those on the witness stand. It'll come from the people who refuse to stop asking, because democracy isn't a stage show, it's a promise, one that dies in silence. And if those in power won't defend that promise, then it's up to us to demand. Every question counts. Every moment of accountability matters. The truth doesn't belong to the powerful, it belongs to everyone. So if you believe transparency isn't negotiable, if you believe victims deserve justice, if you believe the truth should never be redacted, then don't just watch. Speak up. Share this. Keep the conversation alive, because silence is exactly what they want. And if you're here for stories that expose the shadows they try to hide, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay tuned. Because the fight for truth isn't over, it's only just beginning.